What's up YouTube? It's Ace Poker back again for another video. I just filmed my last session yesterday. Going to play again today, another home game, a different home game. So let's see if the action's good. Hopefully we can run it up. We've been going win-loss, win-loss, win-loss for like the past 10 sessions. So yesterday was a loss, which means today will be a win, and a big win at that, hopefully. Let's get right into some cards, subscribe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and let's get right into it. Alright, we're jumping right into the action here. We flop a set. It was a $25 raise pre-flop, 3 players called. Unfortunately, it's a dry board. I check. The initial raiser bets $30. 1 player calls $30. Nothing else for us to do besides call. If it was a more connected board with, say, 2 spades or 2 hearts, something like that, we would be able to raise, but we just call here. Unfortunately, the turn completes the rainbow as there are no flush draws available, so it will be harder to pile some money in. We check again, and now the initial raiser checks. I'm hoping it doesn't check around, and the last player bets $50, so he saved us here. But I do want to try to start getting some money in, praying that he has some kind of 2-pair, straight draw, who knows. I decide to raise it up, but don't have to go big, don't want to go big. I make it $125. The initial raiser pretty quickly gets out of the way, so it appears he had nothing, and now the other player decides to think for a long time. I'm praying he's got something. Maybe he's got 2-pair and he's going to go all in, but after a long think, he decides to fold, so no extra value, but can't complain taking about $150 on the first hand. We've got some profit to play with, calms the nerves down a little bit, and let's head to the next hand. Alright, for this next hand here, we might have royally effed ourselves, but let's have you guys decide, and it's just my job to tell you the action and how I played it. So we pick up Ace-7 suited, and as you see, it's 40 minutes after the last hand. The last hand was my first hand dealt in, so it's a new game, new environment. I'm 40 minutes in. I'm trying to figure everything out. I'm trying to piece it all together. I decide to just limp here, and we go 4 ways to a flop here, in which we flop a flush draw and top pair. Can't get better than that, honestly, so I decide to lead out for $10, and 2 players make the call. The turn seems innocent enough, but it does bring in a diamond flush draw, so now there's 2 flush draws out there. We obviously have the best flush draw for the hearts. I now lead out for $20, and both players make the call again. So it seems like we might need a heart, maybe we're ahead, I'm not too sure, but the river does come that. It comes a heart. It does pair the board, so we do have to tread a little cautious, but I think that this is a great card, honestly. Maybe somebody will have an 8, maybe somebody's very skeptical because I limped. I decide to lead out pretty big now, almost for the full size of the pot. I bet $80, and now the player to my left decides to raise to $300 pretty much immediately. I didn't put him on too strong of a hand, obviously, because we limped. Sure, he can have some boats out there, but I don't know. It just seemed to me, like in my gut, that he also had a heart flush draw, and this is a gin card for me to get paid. The way I bet doesn't really seem like I have a heart flush draw myself, so if he has any heart flush, he definitely will think he's good and go for value. Nothing to do here besides make the call, and unfortunately, my opponent chose Jack-8 offsuit, so we should have just raised pre-flop and would have got that hand out of there. Can't blame anybody else besides myself. But it's alright, have to lock in and just play good moving forward, and we're on to the next hand. For the next hand, we look down at Jack-10 suited in the big blind. There's a $10 straddle on. The hijack decides to open it up to $35. The cutoff calls $35. The button calls $35. The small blind folds. We complete $35, and the straddle folds. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Looking to see a really good flop here. Jack-10 suited is an awesome hand to connect to flops with, one of my favorite hands, so let's see what we get. In which the flop comes pretty good for us. We flop a pair and an open-ended straight draw. So I decide to start with the check here. The initial raiser now checks, the cutoff checks, and now the button decides to go out and bet $50. Nothing else to do besides call here, and both other players decide to get out of the way. Hopefully we can improve on the turn, hitting trips, 2-pair, or straight, or even just pick up a flush draw. And that's exactly what we do. We pick up a flush draw, so I decide to check, hopefully looking to maybe check raise, use our equity, and get our opponent off this hand. But surprisingly, my opponent now checks back, so I'm not sure how strong of a hand he has here. Now the river pairs the board, and it's not the top card. That's definitely what I would have felt more comfortable with. It's a lower card. I definitely still have a bluff catcher here. Nonetheless, I think the better play here is to check, give my opponent some rope to bluff, or just pot control if he does have a super strong hand that he was pot controlling on the turn. So I check, and now my opponent bets $100. Like I said, the check back on the turn doesn't really make any sense, so I decide to put in the call, and thankfully my opponent says he has absolutely nothing. I don't make him show his hand. I just flip over the Jack 10. Definitely a good call. Some people at the table said nice call, and thankfully it worked out. We scooped the pot and we're on to the next hand. For the next hand, we pick up pocket queens in the small blind. There's one limp. We decide to raise it to $20, and only the big blind makes the call. So we're going heads up to an alright looking flop, not the best one, very monotone. We still have an overpair. We decide to c-bet here for $20 again, and he makes the call. Not sure what my opponent has. He's in the big blind, can have a wide range. Not sure what we want to see here on the turn, but let's see it. We see the absolute grossest turn in the deck in the ace of diamonds. Any diamond makes a flush. Any ace beats us. I check. My opponent bets 40. I check to see if I have a diamond and frustratingly fold. My opponent chose king 10 offsuit with the king of diamonds. My opponents are just always getting there with the nuts, and we just seemingly cannot make a hand. For this hand here, we're on the button, and we look down at 8-9 of hearts, a beautiful hand. There is an open to $15 from early position. We decide to call, and the big blind decides to make the call as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, in which we flop top pair on a really good board for us. Both players decide to check it to me. I decide to c-bet for $25, and only the big blind decides to make the call. The big blind can have any 2 cards here, so have to proceed with some caution. He could have a pair and a flush draw, a pair and a straight draw, just a straight draw. Who knows? Let's see what the turn brings. The turn now comes the king of diamonds, which brings 2 flush draws out there. The big blind checks, and I decide to bet for $55 here, and when it gets back to the big blind, he starts thinking and cutting out some chips, and decides to raise to $125. This raise doesn't really make much sense. He's in the big blind, so he can definitely have a wide range. Maybe he has 2 pairs, something like that, but I would think that they would want to raise that on the flop because there's a flush draw. It's a very wet and connected board, so I'm thinking he definitely just picked up some kind of pair plus flush draw. Maybe he just picked up a huge draw and is trying to apply some pressure. He's a very good thinking player, so I don't really know what to do here. I'm getting very sticky. I'm thinking back to my hero call earlier with Jack 10. I decide to put in the call, and hopefully we can improve on the river or get a good river to call down on. And that's pretty much exactly what happens here. It comes a 5 that does not complete any flush draw. I think it's a great card. It lessens the chance that he has a set or 2 pair. He decides to bet out for $100. Now the price is just way too good to fold. I put in the call, and he flopped a straight with 4-6 offsuit, the good old big blind special. Well played by him. I honestly didn't really put him on that strong of a hand. And now we are 1 for 2 on the hero calls today, and we're just going to have to move on to the next hand. For this hand, we are in the cutoff with ace 10 offsuit. There is a late position raise to $15. I think this is a perfect candidate to 3-bet squeeze. I make it $60, and our plan is foiled right away when the big blind cold calls $60, and then the initial raiser calls $60 as well. So it looks like we're going to have to smash a flop here, in which we do not. Long story short, the action checks around, and then the initial raiser bets the turn. We have to frustratingly fold. Nothing is going our way towards the end of the session. Gonna have to lock in and battle back to book a win here at the end. This garbage for sure is not going to get it done. No worries though, 30 minutes later we pick up the beautiful ace-king suited. Seems like we're only getting big hands in a small blind here. There's 1 limp. I decide to make it $20, and just like earlier, only the big blind comes along. We're headed to a flop in which we flop top pair. Things are looking up. We c-bet for $20, and he makes the call again. Hopefully he has something. Let's get along for 3 streets of value here. Not sure what he's got. Just like earlier, big blind can have any 2 cards. The turn seems innocent enough. I decide to bet out $35, and he folds. Things are just getting very frustrating today. Hopefully we can pick it up at the end and win a big one. Getting a bit short here, I decide to open up ace-queen offsuit in later position to $20. The button, the same player who beat me with the 4-6 earlier, decides to 3-bet to $60. I've had enough. I'm putting my foot down. I go all in for $350, and he snap folds. So it seems like he was just trying to put a move, make a play. It works out. We pick up about $60 without seeing a flop. Good result for me. Alright, picking up on the action late here, there's an under the gun +1 raised to $20. I call, and 2 other players call. We see a dream flop. We have the nut flush draw. Let's get it in. Let's get our money in here and double up. I check, setting up a check raise, but the action checks all the way around. Boom, we turn the nut flush. No need to sweat here. The initial raiser leads out for $30, which is even better. I just call, no need to raise here, trying to get some other players involved, and that's exactly what happened as one other player on the button decides to make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a river. Please just make it clean, and boom, finally, no board pair, nothing. We have the absolute nuts. The initial raiser now checks, so it seems like we're going to have to do our own bidding. I bet out for $60. One player folds, and now the initial raiser thinks and thinks and thinks. And I'm like, oh my goodness, please just call. Can we get any value today? Can we win any hand? And finally, after a long think, he makes the call. We show it over. He says nice hand. So things are finally going in the right direction. Let's keep it going that way. Picking up ace-king offsuit again here in early position, I open it up to $25, and the opponent on the button, who beat me with 4-6, makes the call. So it seems like just me and him are battling today. Let's see if we can get some revenge. We see an amazing board in king 10-4. I don't want to c-bet every strong hand, so I decide to check here, and he checks back. We see an alright looking turn, and now I've got to start putting some money in the middle. I put $30 in there, and he decides to make the call. Still a bit confused on what he has, so let's see what the river brings, and we're probably going to value bet any river. Hopefully we don't get raised, but let's see what happens. Let's see a good river, and it seems good to me. Now I decide to bet for $85. On this good of a run out, we're obviously hoping for a call. Like I said, it'll be gross if he raises, but honestly, I'm rooting for a call here. First, he thinks it over for not too long and decides to make the call. I show over ace-king, and it's good. We finally win one here. The sneaky check on the flop seems like maybe we got paid. He didn't believe us. Thankfully, we win this one, and things are going in the right direction, so let's end this session on a high note. Time for the hand of the night, a PLO hand. If you guys don't know PLO, it's poker with 4 cards. You can only use 2 in your hand and 3 on the board. I raised it up to $25. As you see, we have a really good hand. A double connected hand here, king, queen, 5-6. It's very, very good in 2 aspects. The double straight possibilities, you know, the obvious 2 pairs, high cards, double flush draws, very good flush draws, you know, the second nut flush draw, third nut flush draw. Moral of the story, it's a good hand. I raised it up to $25, and 3 players make the call, so we're going 4 ways to a flop, in which we see a pretty good board. We have a double gutter, a backdoor flush draw, some overcards. I'm honestly really liking this board, so I decide to start with a bet of $25, see where I'm at. 2 players fold, and then the player who's last to act decides to raise to $75. Like I said, some good possibilities can happen here, so I decide to put in the call for $75. I want you guys to imagine what the absolute perfect turn card can be, and boom, we hit the 10 of hearts. Not only do we have the absolute best hand possible right now with the highest straight, we have a redraw to the second nut flush draw. Wow, this is the perfect turn card, so I decide to check, and if things could not get any better, now my opponent decides to bet $200. My opponent just bet $200 when I have the stone cold best hand. I look down at my stack. I have roughly $650 left. I'm not exactly sure how much I can raise here because we're playing pot limit Omaha, which means you can only raise the pot, bet the pot. I don't want to ask the dealer. I don't want to make it seem like I have too strong of a hand. So to keep it safe, I decide to raise to $600, and my opponent instantly says all in. I make the snap call, we flip over our hands, and oh my goodness, my opponent has king, queen, 7, 9. That means we are chopping the pot right now. We both have the absolute best straight. He has the draw to a full house. If he hits any 7 or 9, he has a full house and will beat me. I have the draw to any flush draw, so any heart that doesn't pair the board with a 7 or 9, I get the pot. This is insanity. This is like some crazy online setup hand where we just get it all in. I have no idea what to do here when my opponent asks me how many times you want to run it. I say, I don't know, I guess 2. Does 2 sound good? He says 2 is fine, so we're off to 2 boards. If we can hit 2 hearts, we will scoop an over $1,600 pot. I just am praying to see no 7 or 9 because that will be heartbreaking. We have played such a long session. We've been up and down, up and down. This will break me if a 7 or 9 comes out. My heart is pounding. I'm like, please, one time, if I could just use my luck today. 2 hearts, even just 1 heart, I could quarter my opponent. The first river comes, a 9. My opponent immediately hits a full house. I am just drained. I am gutted. Now my opponent has locked up 50% of the pot. So now there's only 50% of the pot left. If a brick comes, I get 25% of that, so my opponent will get 75% of the pot. I'll get 25. I'm praying for a heart for just a chop. Like, this situation was so good for me, and now I'm praying for a heart to just chop. Oh my goodness, please dealer, one time. The river comes a brick. I get quartered. I get only 25% of the $1,600 pot and wind up losing roughly $300 or $400 in the hand. Oh my goodness. This is the picture perfect epitome of run bad. I get the picture perfect turn card. I have all the outs in the world, and I somehow get quartered after having the nut straight and the flush redraw. I have no words for this. This is absolute insanity. Hopefully you guys at least enjoyed watching this hand. This is seriously so crazy. This happens kind of often in PLO. There's a lot of crazy hands like this, but of course this one couldn't go our way. Hopefully we can wrap up with some wins at the end of the session to get back. I have no words. Watching this back, it hurts double. It hurts just as much as it did live. Oh my goodness. Alright, back in the car. A couple days later, as you see, I got a haircut. If you guys were wondering where my hair went from the beginning of the video. But we lost about $200 on the session in a couple hours of play. Didn't run the best. Haven't been running the best in my last couple sessions. Been on a little bit of a downswing. Just wanted to sit here and tell you guys that I appreciate you guys watching, commenting, supporting, because I wouldn't be able to keep doing this and keep going if it wasn't for you guys. This downswing has been just horrendous on my mindset. But just gonna get in the lab, study some poker. I appreciate all you guys joining my Discord, helping me work through some hands. So again, just wanted to sit here, show my appreciation for you guys. You guys literally help me get through this all the time. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.